Syria's foreign ministry has called on the UN Security Council to stop what it calls the massacres perpetrated by the US-led coalition in the Arab country. In two letters to the UN, the Syrian foreign ministry has condemned the coalition's airstrikes against a school in the Syrian town of al-Mansourah near Raqqah city on Tuesday. It said the attack was a new episode in a series of aggressions launched on Syria's sovereignty and on the safety of its territories under the pretext of combating terrorism. Damascus also expressed regret over, quote, the UN's silence and the world body's failure to condemn such crimes. The US-led airstrike on the school left at least 33 civilians dead. Hundreds of civilians have been killed in similar attacks by Syria, by Washington and its allies since 2014. For more on the story, we go live to Sydney, Australia, to talk to Paul Antonopoulos, Deputy Editor of Al-Masdar News. Mr. Antonopoulos, thank you so much for being with us. Civilian casualties have been an almost constant side effect of US airstrikes in countries such as Syria and Yemen, but it seems that there is a spike in the number of civilian lives lost since Trump took office. What is the reason, in your opinion?
Well, when we look at the airstrikes perpetrated by the United States, we can't just focus on Syria. You mentioned Yemen yourself, but we also have to look at what's happening in Mosul in Iraq's north right now, where they're fighting, or rather Iraqi-led forces are fighting ISIS. This has been a consistent theme where the United States have not been able to target terrorist positions effectively, and this has resulted in endless atrocities against the civilians. As I said, this has been happening in Mosul most recently, and it also has been happening across Syria. So in regards to Donald Trump, however, we came with the assumption through his rhetoric that there would be a scale back on US involvement in Syria. This was coming directly from his own mouth, but as you highlighted, rather atrocities have just been occurring at a much larger rate.
And Mr. Antonopoulos, have the rules of engagement changed? Because they are supposed, if even their airstrikes are aimed at terrorist groups, as Washington claims, they are supposed to be precision airstrikes to avoid civilian casualties as much as possible. But it seems the US is carrying out these airstrikes with little or no concern for civilian lives, with a much more open hand.
Since 2014, precision airstrikes has never occurred. We know that they got involved in Syria illegally without any coordination with Damascus. We know that since 2014, ISIS was conducting an illegal oil trade with Turkey. You know, literally blood oil was crossing the borders, and the US airstrikes never once targeted these convoys. However, with Russian airstrikes, almost immediately this convoy stopped. It effectively stopped. So this precision airstrikes, since 2014, it has never existed. Now we're moving into 2017, and civilians are being, whether it's accidental or systematic, it just seems to be occurring at a much higher rate.
And as mentioned in the letter sent by the Syrian Foreign Ministry to the UN Security Council, it says, and I quote, the attack is a new episode in a series of aggressions launched on Syria's sovereignty and on the safety of its territories under the pretext of combating terrorism. What do you think?
As I mentioned earlier, it has been happening since 2014. So we're approaching the third year of these illegal airstrikes with no coordination with Damascus. To respect Syria's sovereignty, there must be coordination with Damascus and Washington. Other than that, the United Nations are not doing enough to stop this aggression.
So in terms of, in the light of the United Nations inaction in this regard, we should be expecting to witness more such attacks by the US on Syrian soil and, of course, more civilian casualties.
Russia and China, in addition of the Security Council, they must do much more to put pressure on the United States to stop these attacks. If we're talking about the United Nations as a whole, Syria must galvanize all of their allies. If there isn't, then unfortunately these attacks that will keep killing women and children and families and just innocent civilians will just continue to occur. Donald Trump made it very clear that his Syria policy was just to defeat ISIS. However, he never emphasized that to defeat ISIS, there must be a distinction between civilians and a terrorist group. And if we go back to Mosul, this is why US-led airstrikes have been continuously hitting civilians. Innocent civilians have been continuously targeted in Mosul, just so that Donald Trump can be viewed as a president that defeated ISIS after President Obama allowed the terrorist group to flourish and emerge to begin with across Iraq and Syria.
Okay, thank you so much for your opinions there, Mr. Antonopoulos. Paul Antonopoulos, Deputy Editor of Al-Masdar News, joining us live from Sydney in Australia. Thank you so much.